The reviews are in, cocksucker. Tremendous. The life of a comedy savage. Who's better than you? Like a doctor, like a soldier. I'm giving it 5 stars of death. Out of 5, kid. You know?
Uncle Joey Coco Diaz. Yes. Tremendous. The life of a comedy savage. 5 out of 5 stars.
Tremendous.
Hats off to you,
Uncle Joey.
Yes. Knocked it out of the park. He did it. He truly did. You know, from my position as a comedian and also as a fan, just watching comedy and stuff like that, this is something that is meaningful for the comedian. Definitely a required read for any like person interested in comedy. I put it up there with some of the things I've read, like Prior Convictions and Other Life Sentences by Richard Pryor. His autobiography, Prior Convictions by Richard Pryor. Other ones being, that I've read, It Ain't Easy Being Me, you know? It ain't easy being me. A Life of No Respect, but Plenty of Sex and Drugs by Rodney Dangerfield. You know? Based on a true story. A memoir by Norm Macdonald. Born Standing Up. A Comic's Life. I believe is the full title of that one. Born Standing Up, A Comic's Life by Steve Martin. So those are some of the ones that I've read as a comedian and as a fan. And I put Tremendous right up there.
5 stars of death, kid. Out of 5. We're going deep into the murky waters.
You degenerate fucks. Yeah, man. It's a tremendous read. I opted for the audiobook. I got the audiobook just to hear, Uncle Joey do his thing. But also his co-author in the project, in the book, Erica Florentine. Yes, Erica Florentine. She helped him with this autobiography. They worked together on it, and it would definitely make for a great read as well. Very smooth, very on point. It just flowed. It was a easy listen, an enjoyable, tremendous listen. So I wouldn't doubt that it would be a great read as well. It just flowed, right? So, definitely required reading for any comedian, any person interested in comedy and pop culture, the whole show business, Hollywood scene, and also personal revelation, like overcoming in life. That's very much Uncle Joey's message and his appeal to his many fans, myself included. The book is in 3 parts. Starts off with his childhood, part 1. Then part 2 being like what happened to him, what he went through. And part 3 being how he turned his life around, how he overcame. So 3 parts: childhood, what he went through, and how he overcame. And, that's so relevant to the listener. You know what I mean? Who can't relate? Who can't relate to, the trials and tribulations of life? We all have our crosses to bear, so to speak. You know what I mean? And in a tremendous fashion, cocksucker. I mean, he even slapped a nun. Some of like the stories that get down in the nitty gritty in Tremendous. I mean, we all have our crosses to bear. Like, for example, he socked a nun.
Only a comedy savage
would go into that type of territory. And what a life and what a story, I'll let you get into that tale with the nun. You could check that out in the book. Many other tales of debauchery and hilarity. So, this book, tremendous. For those of y'all who kind of have heard of it, for those of you who are a fan of Uncle Joey and, you're familiar. Like for me, how I got into Uncle Joey was, listening to podcasts. There's one of the most popular ones, the Joe Rogan Experience. I'd be watching Joe Rogan Experience. This is like, I don't know, 2015 or something like that, 2014. So, I'd be watching Joe Rogan Experience. And, I'd hear him talking with, talking about comedy and stuff like that. Great podcast. And then, you'd have guests like Doug Stanhope, and they'd be just talking about comedy. And they start talking about this savage named Joey Coco Diaz. And eventually I would see Joey on the Joe Rogan Experience, and he'd be,
I got something to tell you, Joe Rogan. All those years, on the road with you doing them shows with Red Band, we'd be, you take me on the set of News Radio, and dog, I'm telling you, like, you were always a gentleman to me, Joe Rogan. You take me to the set of News Radio, and, I'd be eating fucking king crab, I'd be eating giant shrimp scallops, I'd just be shoveling it into my face, and, I felt terrible. Absolutely terrible, Joe Rogan, Didn't have a pot to piss in, but you always treated me like a gentleman, Joe Rogan. Salute. Smoke a little toot salutes. We're going to the deeper waters, kid. The murky waters of death, kid. And I'm like, who the fuck is this savage, And he'd be telling stories, One time I set a hooker's wig on fire. The bitch had it coming to her. She tried to scam my buddy out of a blowjob, so I snatched that wig off that bitch's head and I set it on fire, Jack. Who's better than you? We ain't fucking around. And I'm like, what? What am I witnessing? This big, larger-than-life character, the gruff voice, the hard background, the comedy chops. It's just like a force of nature on film and live in person as a stand-up. I mean, considered one of the best stand-ups out there in this day and age. And he's just like a force. You'd be watching him, and like, at first I was like very much like everyone. I was like, he's going into his tales, I used to rob motherfuckers, break into a jewelry store, I'd snatch a fucking purse from a granny. I don't give a fuck, Jack. I was stealing with 3 hands, I was snorting coke, I was smoking dope, around the clock, motherfucker. And then I was like, like some petty criminal fucking junkie, And, on the other hand, too, it's like, why he's so relatable. I say junkie. He's very open with that. What also drew me in, too, is because, like, for example, myself had a bit of a drinking problem. I had a drinking problem, and I'm a stand-up comedian. So, like, I was really kind of drawn into his story. I was seeing a lot of parallels. I was relating, myself in my humble career doing my thing, relating to the lean years. No pun intended, or no joke intended, but the lean years in the Coco Diaz world, when he's like just out on the grind, struggling, banging it out as a comic. I was like, that's what I was relating to, like the open mics, the one-nighters, you make $50 at a little gig, you're middling for a weekend at a club and you made $250. Oh my God, I'm in the game. And the drinking, the debauchery, the hangovers, I'd be waking up with hangovers and, just my own personal little hell. I was kind of like relating to it in Uncle Joey, just hearing his stories but also just like hesitant, he's like a comedy savage, the motherfucker, true to form. That is what the motherfucker is, a savage, Jack. Right? So
I'm kind of like hesitant to this guy. I'm like, I'm not really understanding him. I'm misunderstanding him, right? And that's a point that Uncle Joey tried to emphasize in this book, is putting his story out there, just trying to come clean with everything and be understood for what he went through to get to where he is. So in the beginning, I too, like everyone, was misunderstanding him. Then I was listening to an episode of
The Church of What's Happening Now, cocksucker, alongside Lee Sayat, the Flying Jew.
right? Listening to an episode of The Church of What's Happening Now. This is somewhere in like 2015 or something. I'm listening to an episode. And, Joey's going into his stories, right? And he's a master storyteller. And, you hear these stories and they're like setting hookers' wigs on fire, stealing, snorting coke, jail, piss tests, fucking ex-wives, ex-wife from hell, just all this debauchery you're hearing. And you kind of, on one hand, you're laughing, but on the other hand, too, you're like, wow, this man is a savage. It's a bit much. I mean, how much do I want to, you don't really know what to make of it. You're somewhat in judgment. And then I hear him telling this story, it's like, dog, I'm telling you, the year was 1985. I was selling cars at a dealership. I was broke. I was snorting coke. And I used to live in this little 20 square foot storage closet in a office building, and I'm telling you, there was no bathroom, no running water, just a little cot on the ground. I'd sleep on the floor, and every time I had to take a shit, I would hang my ass out the window, take a shit. The little shit droppings would slide down the window. You're listening to a story about a grown man sticking his ass out the window taking a shit. And like in my head, when I would hear all his stories, they're crazy, they're hilarious, they're out there. But I'm also knowing from my background as a drunk, I'm like, well, I'm a drunken fucking fool. And I know that there's a lot of problems that I put on myself, right? And I know that I'm not proud of these things. And it's like, and I know that I'm trying to overcome these things. I see that in myself. So when I hear these seemingly unrepentant stories of comedy savagery from Coco Diaz, you're just like, like they are funny, but they're a bit like, you know what I mean? Then he had a guest. He had a guest. It was like one of his comedy friends that he'd known for years. So they had like a rapport. They were comfortable with each other, right? So Joey's going into his tales of woe.
I used to hang my ass out the window taking a shit.
Then his friend was like, Joey, okay, like I know you've had problems, but you did not have to stick your ass out the window to take a shit. That was a choice. You chose to hang your ass out the window, take a shit. You chose that. Don't tell me that just because you were snorting coke and you were broke, your only option to take a shit was to hang your ass out of a window, bare ass, full frontal, bareback, and shit out the window. Don't tell me that was your only option. And like a pro, like best comic timing, like just like complete comic timing, just.
I used to hang my ass out the window, take a shit, snorting coke.
Just the way he just paused, as if like what the guy said didn't even sink in. He's just going on with his story. You did not have to shit out the window. You did not have to do that. That was a choice. You chose to shit out the window.
I hung my ass out the window, took a shit. Tremendous, Jack.
And I was just like, wow, man, what a dirtbag. I love it. But I'm scared. And I'm confused. I don't know. Why am I listening to this? Why am I listening to this? What's this doing for me? Well, what is this doing for me? At the end of that episode, Joey goes into all sorts of stories and he's just letting his heart spill out, right? And his friend, the guy that had called him on the BS about hanging your ass out the window. That friend, he goes, wow, Joey, you know, always great talking to you and just your stories, man. And just, wow, just what a life, what mayhem, what craziness, what like debauchery. And then Joey goes,
yeah, but I redeemed myself. I want to give a shout out to Manscaped, motherfuckers. When you shave the edges, the tree stands taller. I want to give a shout out to my fucking sponsors, stamps.com. Whenever you're sending mail by fucking U.S. mail, dog, I'm telling you, you're going down to the fucking post office. It's a fucking nightmare. You have to smoke a joint, snort a line of coke just to fucking...
you're like, wow. Like, that simple line kind of shone some light for me on the whole situation. Like, all of a sudden, I kind of understood the heart of this gentleman, of this savage, you know?
But I redeemed myself. But he redeemed himself.
And that's kind of when the hook got snagged on me. I'm like, yeah, I'll rock with this. I love, Church of What's Happening Now, Joey Coco Diaz,
Lee Sayat, the Flying Jew.
I'm like, yeah, I could rock with this. You know what I mean? Because up until that point, you just, you hear these stories, and if you hear them seemingly out of context, like burning a fucking hooker's wig on fire, punching a nun, hanging your ass out the window to take a shit, robbing every fucking chance you get, like you hear it and you're just like, right? But deep down, there's that heart that anyone who's going through something understands, and trying to overcome and trying to redeem yourself, and just told through the lens of a complete comedy savage. You know what I mean? And, that's the value I saw in the Church of What's Happening Now. That's the value that I saw in, that I see in his, in like the comedy that I would watch online. I saw a couple specials online, hearing him on Rogan, and, the Church of What's Happening Now, that, oh man, like that kind of sparked my interest in his work. And like, it would just motivate you. It would motivate you for a day, as I mentioned, like for myself, like the comic on the come up, out on the grind, out drunk doing shows, out running from gig to gig. And in the morning, you're waking up, it's fucking 5-6 o'clock in the morning. You got to get your ass up and go work as a general laborer, as a rented mule for the day. I'd be walking up the hill on my way to the construction site, on my way to whatever. I was out drunk all night doing stand up, just kind of wondering what the future would be. And, I throw on my headphones, light up a cigarette, put on the sunglasses, hit play on that cell phone or the MP3 player, and, I want to give you my love, every inch of my love.
What's happening, you bad motherfuckers? Uncle Joey, Church of What's Happening Now, alongside Lee Sayat, the Flying Jew. You need schooling, and it ain't no fooling. Girl, you need me, and I'm drooling. I want to give you my love, every inch of my love. Whole lot of love, not a whole lot of love. Drop your cocks and grab your socks, motherfucker, I want to see nothing but assholes and elbows. The Church of What's Happening Now, motherfucker. It's a beautiful day to be alive. Someone's sucking your dick today, motherfucker. I don't give a fuck. We're robbing with 3 hands today. I want to give you my love, every inch of my love. Whole lot of love, not a whole lot of love. Like a doctor, like a soldier.
It would amp you the fuck up, Uncle Joey. You're going up the fucking hill to your stupid ass job, pushing a shovel on a fucking chain gang somewhere, trying to make a couple bucks to grab a 6-pack, maybe a gram of weed, you know, go do a stand-up comedy set at some fucking shit bar somewhere. You know what I mean? That shit got me through it in them times, man. In them times, you know? So, you know, that's the value. That's like the value, man. That from the heart to heart understanding, you know? I don't even know the guy. I mean, it's just like, through an inspirational story. And that's what he is, a master storyteller, right?
Tremendous.
So, you know, through this masterful storytelling, Church of What's Happening Now, Uncle Joey's joint, you know, tremendous. This book, The Life of a Comedy Savage, it's a further exploration if you're interested in his work. And if it speaks to you, it's definitely, you know, well worth it. You know what I mean? And it brings some of the stories that you've been hearing. It brings some of the stories that, you know, as a fan, we've been hearing. It brings more context what he was going through, and especially with the childhood stuff, because it's like, yeah, like when I first hear him and hear his stories, it's a little off-putting, it's a little unsettling. But then you start to realize, wow, like through the childhood, how we can all understand in one way or another, you know, through our childhoods, we were all set up to go down paths, good or bad, right or wrong, and to you know, have our trials and tribulations. Like something also that I relate with the story. His mother passed away at the age of 48, very young. My mother passed away, age of 48, very young. And these were women that did the best they could for their children, but they were very troubled women that, in a sense, set the children up. I saw that in my own life, and I definitely see that in, you know,
Uncle Joey's
story. You know what I mean? Like, you know, a mother who loves her son more than anything, but she's a troubled woman, and in a sense, the children get set up for a life of questioning, instability. So now, you know, you definitely understand that, and you get a sense of where Uncle Joey's coming from in Tremendous. You know what I mean? And the masterful storytelling again, you know, just the story, you know, you just relate to it, you know. It's like, dog, I'm telling you, it was 1994. I used to go down to Chucky's Diner down there on Penny and Boulevard Lane, get myself a chicken dinner, you know, on the cuff. You know, Chucky knew I was good for it. And matter of fact, motherfuck Chucky, fuck that rat bastard, you know, fuck him. And you know, dog, you know, fuck him, I never paid him back. But anyway, you know, I go get a chicken dinner down at Chucky's Diner with the, you know, coleslaw and the kidney beans that I like with a little bit of mustard sauce, you know, motherfuck blue cheese and ranch dressing, none of that shit. Get myself a chicken dinner, glass of Coke, lots of ice, you know, and you know, I go back to my car. That's if it wasn't towed. Go to my car and go park it behind a dumpster somewhere, and you know, I'd be snorting coke and smoking dope, and you know, just, you know, I have my little blanket from Kmart, some little shitty rat blanket that I've been using for years that I stole from a Kmart, you know, and I'd make myself a little bed, and you know, I'd go over my dog, I'm telling you, I go over my fucking joke book. Go over my joke book. I'm just reading my jokes, living in the back of a car, and I would just cry. Dog, I would just cry and cry and cry. Breaks your heart, you know what I mean? Like, you just relate to it, like, from a human level of just being down on your luck, doing the best you can. You relate to it. And, you know, for the entertainers out there, the idea of struggling for your craft, striving for your craft. You know, I remember them days too in my own story of just the uncertainty and the spending of time alone and the pain in it at times, you know what I mean? And that's what this whole search is for. The search is to overcome so you can stand proud and be peaceful in your own company. You know what I mean? And it can take years, as Uncle Joey would say, you know? So, definitely a
Tremendous read.
tremendous The Life of a Comedy Savage by Joey Coco Diaz with Erica Florentine. Highly recommend. Required reading for any comedian, any person interested in comedy and, you know, Hollywood pop culture. And, you know, and definitely for the person who is interested in, you know, humor and self-help, overcoming. You know what I mean? That's the takeaway message that I definitely got from the book, you know?
Like a doctor, like a soldier.
You know? You did it, Uncle Joey, and thank you. Yes.